Grad School, hosted by Heidi and Chris and the Police.
Hello, kitties.
Hello.
We're going to have a real good time together. I'm thinking of adding that. What do you think?
Yeah, why not?
The Velvet Underground
Yes.
song?
Yes.
Yeah.
I like
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Good.
It makes a high bar for us to try to get over.
It does. Sets the stage, though.
It does. And it puts the onus on our guests to really deliver in that regard.
Right. That's true. Doesn't put it on us, puts it on them.
No, please. Yeah. This is us we just throw the equipment onto the field and go, I don't know. I guess this is lacrosse, maybe?
Yeah,
play
something.
this. Yeah.
I don't know. We're like bad roadies.
Yeah, exactly. Passed out way before the opening act ever
100%
gets the stage. This week, well, I guess this week it's episode 404. So
yes.
If you are listening from day one, thank you so much for giving us this much of your time.
Yes.
We hope it has been worth it. And if it hasn't, don't let it be reflected in your review.
Right.
Let's just put it that way.
Right.
So this week, I was going to say this week we have Emily James, but this week we do have Emily
We
James.
do have it. It's not an untrue statement. We just, for those who are listening to this months later, we released 4 episodes day one to really give our listeners a good taste of a variety of the people we're talking to.
Yes. I mean, and we still have Emily James on the show, regardless of when you're listening.
We do.
Yes.
And so probably if you're listening to it years from now, she's a huge megastar.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, how did they score her?
Right. Somebody messed up in the PR department.
Right.
And I feel like I always dislike shows that are like, oh, keep an eye on this person. They're going to be big.
Agreed.
But she's a really good singer, songwriter.
Mm-hmm.
And we've tried this first week to put up 4 episodes that show a little bit of the variety we will be trying to bring to you every single week.
Yes.
We have sort of the Mount Rushmore of music with someone like Chris Hillman.
Indeed.
And I think you could say Nikki as well is a Mount Rushmore type person.
Yes.
Somebody who is an expert and has forgotten more about music than we will ever remember. And someone like Doug.
Yes.
And giving us a really interesting insight into a particular artist and or era. Mm-hmm. And then we have somebody like Emily, who is newer to the game, but has put out, I don't know how many EPs. It's fascinating.
It is. And a lot of
it. 3 or 4.
Yeah. And she writes all her own stuff. She has done a lot of the recording she's done from home, given the world circumstances. And it's really haunting and her outlook is really sort of, I don't know, it's fun to see someone at the front end who's been inspired by all these other people we've talked to, but really talking at like her musical journey it's not just started because, to your point, she's put out several things already, but she's really feeling her way through to see what the future holds for her. And it's really cool.
And so I think we could say the goal of this show is to show you both artists' front ends and back ends. Is that what we're saying?
Yes, exactly.
Right.
Because it still always comes back.
Come for the front end, stay for the back end.
Stay for the back end. And everything in between.
Perfect. Well, yeah, we apologize for this intro.
Yes. And all of our future intros.
Yes, exactly. And don't let your rating of the show on iTunes or your player of choice reflect our complete immaturity.
Right. Unless you like that sort of thing.
Yeah, if you love it, then let's go 6 stars if you can. Was there a reason you went with the EP format versus an LP?
Yeah. So when I started this EP, the songs were kind of I was making them all as individual songs and didn't really envision them being together initially. So it felt strange to just all of a sudden throw them into an album together, because that wasn't my intention from the start. So instead, I kind of looked at them and picked the songs that I felt went best together and told a story, and decided that it would be best to split it up into two parts. And it's also a little bit easier to digest. So
Yeah. And what was the writing process like? Because they could seem very personal, or they could all seem of a character where you're trying to tell a story.
right,
I
right.
guess that's the smarter way of me asking, like, did you make out with somebody in a kitchen? Or is this a character that you came up with?
Yeah, we're not holding back here.
Nope. Never do.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like to get too specific about the inspiration behind the song, solely because I like people to attach their own meanings to it.
Hmm.
I feel like um, release days are always kind of a strange feeling, because it's exciting, but at the same time, it's like you've had this child with you for all of this time, and then now all of a sudden you're kind of showing it to the world and releasing it off to have its own life with other people. Um, but yeah, as far as the writing process, that one that you mentioned, that was then, is one that I did by myself, wrote and produced, and a few of them were like that. That was then The List and Venice. And then three of them were collaborations where I wrote them with some of my friends and co-produced. So it was really fun to have that, the two sides of that, because it's such different processes, but I love both of them equally.
You have a pretty intense looking mic there. Do a lot of home recording? Do you just do demos, or are you working on the pieces that will become tracks on the CP?
Yeah, yeah. Most of the songs on there were recorded here and on this mic, actually. So yeah, only a couple of them where um, maybe I was "Don't Fall on Me" and "Back in the Summer" were the original um, vocals from when we wrote the song. So those were when we were in the studio writing them. But um, yeah, that's also interestingly different, because I feel uh, sometimes I perform a song differently when I'm at home versus in a studio, because, eh, you know, if you're just by yourself and singing a song, it's such an intimate experience and you're just alone and with your thoughts, versus when there's somebody else in the room or a couple people, you're suddenly conscious of that, and it just creates different performances, I think.
Yeah.
So what was that process, not to go back, but
Yeah.
in talking about sort of the difference between when you're writing solo and then collaborating with your friends, did you know going in that these were friends that you knew you could work with, or was it something that you kind of figured out along the way, like, okay, we can hit our stride, or was there a point where you're like, oh, I'm not sure if these were the right friends to do this with?
Yeah, it's funny because with songwriting, a lot of times you just kind of meet people through a mutual friend, or somebody you've worked with in the past. And so most the 2 out of 3 of the collaborations, when I wrote them with the people I did, that was my first time meeting them. So it's kind of strange. You just have to meet these people and kind of bare your soul to them right away, and it's kind of like you're meeting someone for the first time and you walk in and just take all your clothes off. Like, that's kind of what
All
it feels
right.
like sometimes. And you just have to be comfortable with that. And I think there's kind of um a known I'm trying to find the word, but just not secrecy, but privacy and confidence, I guess, that everything kind of stays in the room, and that you will open up and then the other person will return that back. So it's really, I don't mind it because I love, like, I hate small talk. I like, just getting right into it with people. So I guess it works for me. So
That's interesting because, like you said, your stuff is so personal and it's coming from a personal place that's the inspiration for it all. And that, do you think it was, if it was somebody you knew better, it'd be little more, little more difficult? If it would be a little harder to do that, but because it's a relative stranger, there's sort of a, well, you don't know me that well, so I can tell you this stuff and you won't connect to who I'm really talking about.
yeah, I've never thought of that, but I think that's definitely true. I think sometimes maybe my family and friends are surprised about what they hear in my songs because it's harder for me to communicate that just by talking about it. Whereas, you can really tell, like you said, when somebody's so disconnected from the story and the experience, it's kind of easier to just say how you really feel about it. So yeah, I definitely think that's true.
Hmm.
When did you know you had that in you, that ability to create a beautiful song?
um, I think, well, it's interesting. I was always singing, and I would kind of be riffing random songs when I was little. I had a little karaoke machine and would make everyone in my family sit down and put on a performance for them, probably in like a princess dress. And
I still do that with my
yeah.
family.
It's the best,
Yes.
quarantine activities.
Right?
But
Excuse me.
yeah, so then I I recently found some kind of um random pieces of paper of when I was really little and just had written down, like, and I it like took me back. I could remember the melodies of the things that I wrote,
Mm.
even though it wasn't like, a real song. But I think when I was about 10, was when I wrote my first kind of full structured song. Um, I just remember, that was the time where I started listening to music really and dissecting it, and realizing, okay, there are these things that I guess are verses where, melodically they're the same, but lyrically they're different. And then there's these choruses where they're melodically and lyrically the same. And then there's this other section, which I didn't know it was a bridge, but it's like melodically and lyrically different from everything else. So I just remember kind of like going along with that formula and then just seeing what happened, and then fell in love with the process.
Have you been trained sort of traditionally, or how much of this has just been, like you said, self-taught of analyzing the songs you like and going, oh, well, Bob Dylan does it this way, so
Right.
he can't be wrong.
Yeah, yeah. I was taking piano lessons. I started when I was about 5, and then started guitar lessons around 13. But as far as songwriting, that kind of came on its own, and I never really, took any classes on it or anything. I thought about that, and I respect, people who do that, but I just felt I don't want to then start getting in my head about rules. I want to just kind of roll with what feels right. So just kind
Well,
of went,
That's fair.
yeah.
and I mean, again, to circle back to it, your stuff is so personal. It's hard to. What's it like to go back to your old records now because you're writing from such an emotional, personal place? It's got to
Yeah,
be like, is it like reading your diary?
definitely, yeah. Especially the really old stuff, because it's just, um, it almost feels like another person, because um, the songs kind of change meaning for me. I think even songs that I may still perform, but I had written there's one song that I wrote when I was 14, and I put it on my album, which I released only a couple years ago. And that one has kind of evolved and taken on a new life as I've grown. So it's kind of cool how they can grow with me, and then some of them it's you kind of they kind of stay in the past. So it's interesting to see which ones kind of evolve like that.
And it's got to be interesting too, as a creative person, as a writer, that I mean, the difference between 14 and 20, that's a huge gap. That's
Yeah.
Mhm.
not 27 to 37. Like that's a major leap. So it's
Yeah.
got to be. I mean, how much have you learned? Have you gone back to these songs and been like, "Oh man, what was I thinking with the structure? With this,
Yeah.
I thought this
Some of
rhyme I could get
them.
away with." Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. But I try not to be hard on myself because it's all just a growth, and I'm learning as I go. I'm never gonna feel like I know what I'm doing. I'm always gonna be learning new things, and um I want it to stay that way. I just want to always be learning, and I think yeah, I I just try to contextualize it with where I was at the time, and then know where I'm at now and look at it that way.
And what about the production side of things? There's very much a sound that you have on a lot of your music. Are you really involved in that, or is that where you kind of step away?
Yeah, no, I'm definitely very involved. Even in the earlier stages, I'm really grateful to all the producers I worked with in the past, just because I learned so much from them, and they, even if I was young, they never shut down my ideas or disregarded them. It was always, a collaborative process of, oh yeah, I like that. Let's do this. And yeah, it was always, bouncing and growing it higher and higher. So I really attribute my confidence to those people and those early experiences. And now it's I've again, with kind of not judging what comes out of myself, and knowing I'm never going to know it all. That was kind of the most freeing um, concept to me, because it allowed me to not get in my own way and just kind of roll with what comes out, and know that maybe in a few years I'll look back at this song and say, "Oh, I would have done this differently," but that's because I have new knowledge and I didn't have that at the time. Um, but yeah, I just love how with production you can create this whole world, and um, by changing that, you can change the entire feel of the song and emotion. So
So many people, or not so many, but a lot of people love to write songs and lyrics and poetry and all those different things, but it's so rare to actually be able to truly do it as a career or to truly pursue it. How did you know what steps to take to be able to do that, especially at such a young age?
that's a good question. I think I knew that I wanted to. I think I never started thinking like, oh, I'm gonna make a lot of money doing this. It was just kind of you know, going back to one of your previous questions with, you know, putting music out young, it being a development period, I think I've felt such an urgency to put music out, especially because, like you said, it feels kind of like a diary. And for me, sometimes these projects are little time capsules of my life at that time. And so I can kind of look back, and it's, kind of reliving that experience. And um, also just, as I've grown and have grown more listeners joining me on my journey, it's it's become more than just writing for myself, but people have reached out and told me that my songs have helped them through something difficult, and that is just everything to me because, I think music is so powerful, and with bringing people together and helping people through hard times. So it's become, more than just me, but I want to use it to help other people and bring people joy and comfort. Um, so I think that's always why I want to be putting out music.
Well, it's such a gift to have, to be able to give that to somebody who you don't know any other way. Who were those artists for you growing up that did that for you? And has
Mm.
that list of names changed in the 10 years you've been doing stuff?
Yeah, I think it has changed in that it's grown. I still go back to my earliest influences. I always cite Adele's 21 album as kind of the turning point for me with music, because that was, when I was about 11, and those songs, especially Someone Like You, just struck me so hard. Um, you know, as a young person who hadn't experienced heartbreak on that level, but still feeling her emotions, that just really showed me the power of writing. And um, I think too, you mentioned Bob Dylan earlier. Definitely his writing. I've always loved Fleetwood Mac and Stevie Nicks, and I'm always listening to um, new music and other independent artists, and just you know learning from others. And I'm trying to think of somebody recently who
It's
um,
always you have all the names, and
I
then
know.
somebody asks you and you go blank. Yeah.
Anytime anyone's like, "Oh, what have you been listening to?" I have to like look on my Spotify, like, what did I just
Mhm.
listen to? So yeah.
Is it anyone that would surprise us? Is it other singer-songwriters? I mean, the folks you mentioned clearly are very good at that. But is there
Yeah.
something on there where you're like that you take something from that perhaps would surprise someone who loves your stuff?
Um, I think
Are
I
you a
think
secret, like, Insane Clown Posse fan?
I mean, that was my older sisters, where we have like an NSYNC and Backstreet Boys like Christmas ornament, two different ornaments. So yeah, they definitely live on in our house. Um, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I was a big One Direction fan when I was, 13, but I think that's fair
Who
enough.
wasn't? Yeah.
Yeah. But lately I listen to all kinds of genres. I've been listening a lot to a lot of Arlo Parks, and this this other British artist Celeste. I don't know if you guys are familiar with her, but
Mhm.
she's, and she's very jazzy and bluesy, and same with early jazz and blues influences, Etta James, Ella Fitzgerald. I, you know, I would say my music is so different from that, but I just admire the vocal ability and the emotion. And, again, it's all about how it makes you feel. So I just go with music that makes me feel something, really.
I hear your voice and my heart's kick-started. Feel the crowd somewhere around the edge of the apartment. It's been a few
Emily's new
months and
EP,
as much as I
Wanted You
want
to Know
to
Part 1,
say
is
it,
available wherever you get music. For more information, you can check out her website, emilyjames.net.
You can follow us on all the various socials. You can check out our website at rockandrollgradschool.com for more grad school content. And please leave us a review on iTunes. We're tired of asking our family members to do so.
Today's show was produced by myself and Heidi Hegquist. Our reluctant executive producers are John Sove and Sandy Stone. Our willing producers are Rachel Allen and Randy Jeanette. Our intern is Zach Jackson. Our graphic designer is Samantha Mastonen. This one's for Philippe. Thank you, good night, and may all your favorite bands stay together.
So I act unattached, but you got me unguarded. Just doing what I can to keep so lighthearted, but I can't help the fact that my mind keeps track of everywhere your hands have been to. Think it's too late now to ever restart it, 'cause I keep running through the past trying to figure it out, but that was then.